Hello everybody, this is Jason Napalm from the UK and I'm back with another sermon on the go. Going to be looking at a very interesting question tonight, a really interesting subject, and giving a very interesting answer to it. Now, the sermons that I share with you, I must say that for years, I've been a Christian nearly 28 years now. I spent a good amount of that in ministry, teaching from the Bible, holding revival meetings, evangelistic outreaches. I'm no stranger to public ministry. I served as a high street evangelist for over 7 years, and I also held revivals and meetings in a church, a local Pentecostal church I was going to, and also in schools, school halls, gym halls, and community centres, and etc. And during that time of teaching from the Bible and preaching, I tended to just pretty much parrot fashion the preachers that I was learning from at the time, because I deemed it is safer to just pretty much repackage what they said, and then that way, if I make any mistakes, I can simply say, well, it's not my fault because I'm just quoting from so and so. You know, if I'm wrong, then it's not me, it's this other person. And I find that a lot of preachers do that. They tend to just repeat what they've heard from their pastors at church or from other ministers. And it's all right to quote from them, especially when they come out with some good stuff. And it's okay to use their sermons, okay? But there comes a point when we have to learn for ourselves from the Bible things that they may not have taught. And of course, we have to test it with the Bible. Of course, we have to make sure that we're in line. We have to speak to other people who are strong in the faith, spiritually deep, okay, strong in spirit, have an exemplary, if that's how you pronounce it, a great understanding of the Bible, okay, and are seasoned ministers with a clear understanding of the Bible. And we can check with them, which I do as well. Whenever I do a sermon on the go, I tend to say, this is what I'm sharing with you. Now, if you see anything wrong with that, then come back to me, share chapter and verse to explain what I've said is wrong. Okay? And so that's what I will continue to do. All the sermons that I bring on this program will be in submission to those who watch it and those who may see there's something wrong. So having that settled, you don't have to believe what I teach on these sermons, but I will leave you with no doubt that what I teach there is a result of years of study, years of reading the Bible, years of walking with God and doing my utmost best to live for God and being the best possible example I can be in my own self as a Christian, okay? I don't take this lightly. I don't take to doing these sermons and these teachings in a flippant fashion and just as a platform to talk and to get my point across. Okay, so tonight we're going to be looking at the subject, is God in control? Is God in control? I actually did do a sermon about this about a year or two ago, I believe. I can't find it. It's probably in amongst my Facebook videos or something. But I'm coming back to it now. We often see posts that say, don't worry, God is in control. And that sounds good. It sounds reassuring that God is in control, nothing's going to get out of hand, and so forth. And we just take that for granted. We also see posts that say prayer changes things, or that there is power in prayer. All these sayings, yeah, we tend to say them, but we don't really look at them deeply enough to say, but does prayer change things? Is God in control? Is there power in prayer? And I can say, no, there isn't any power in prayer. I can say, no, prayer doesn't change things. Now, you may think, well, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't sound right because we've been taught and been given this saying that is wrong. But we say it, and if you keep saying something enough times, it becomes truth in a person's mind. Now, let me explain. If there was power in prayer, then any of the world religions would manifest power in their prayer life, because they all pray, okay? So the answer there is there's not power in prayer, there's power in God. There is power in God, okay? Not power in prayer, because prayer without God is nothing. It's just talk, okay? It's just some form of spiritual meditation in some cases. So no, there isn't any power in prayer. Prayer changes things. No, it doesn't. If prayer changed things, then Muslims would have their prayers answered, Hindus would have their prayers answered, New Age people would have their prayers answered, and even devil worshippers would, okay? So prayer doesn't change things, God changes things. So we need to sort of like, drop these sayings that are not actually true. They're not true. They're quite misleading. And it takes the attention away from the source of our prayer. The source of our prayer is God. God changes things. God answers prayer. Prayer in itself is just talk. Okay? Now, having explained that, let's look at the word control. Now, before we look at the Bible and all the references to God being in control, we need to look at what the word control means. Now, I can't pronounce this because it's in Greek. It says, but the Greek word for control means to control, funnily enough, to check, to audit, to inspect, to monitor. Okay, the Greek word for control. It's no good going to the Oxford Dictionary to find out what the Bible means by control, yeah, or what the Greek means in control. We need to look at the original languages that the Bible was written in and was spoken in. So we need to look at Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek. Okay, and the Greek word, let me explain it again. The Greek word for control means to control, to check, to audit, inspect, monitor, checking. Okay, that's what it means. Now, when we look at this, then we go to what does the Bible say about God in control, yeah? So I've typed in Open Bible, www.openbible. What does the Bible say about God in control? Now this is shocking. I mean, I was just blown away by this. Excuse me. But the Bible doesn't actually say the words God is in control. Okay? You run every reference to the word control in the Bible, you will not find a single verse that says God is in control. Not one single verse. The word control actually only tends to pop up when it's talking about self-control. Like the fruit of the Spirit is self-control. Okay, let me just get this across to you. There's not one verse in the Bible that says God is in control. There's not even a verse in the Bible that uses the word control in the context of God saying he's in control, he's going to control this, or that's amazing. So that's saying God is in control is actually unbiblical, it's unscriptural. Okay? Now you may think I'm splitting hairs here, but this teaching is beyond surface teaching. It's deeper in the Bible, and brings a deeper understanding. If you want to grow as a Christian, we need to go beyond just the surface of what we read in the Bible and dig deep into it. Mine for the treasures of God's knowledge and wisdom. So having established, you can do this yourself. Google, okay, type in God is in control. What does the Bible say about God in control? You will find, I'll tell you something, if you find one verse that says God is in control, then I will redo this sermon. Okay, now the verses that do come up when it says God is in control is Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Okay, then we got Proverbs 19:21, many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. It's the purpose of the Lord that will stand. The heart of man plans his ways, but the Lord establishes his steps. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. God is faithful, who will not let you be tempted beyond your ability, but with the temptation has also provided a way of escape. There's just nothing there. There's just nothing there saying God's in control. Jeremiah 29:11, very famous verse. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. plans for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Oh, my pad's slipping. Oopsie. And Psalm 115 verse 3, our God is in the heavens, he does all he pleases. Okay, so now having established the Bible doesn't actually say God is in control, what does that mean? You may think I'm saying, well, if God's not in control, then who's in control? And where and what is? Are you saying that the world just does its own thing and God doesn't ever say in it? Now, this is where we hit the important part. The answer. If God isn't in control, then what? What am I saying? What I'm saying is what we can find in the Bible is many, many verses on predestination, not as Calvin taught, but God has predestined things to happen. God has seen the beginning from the end. Okay? God sees the beginning from the end. He has foreordained certain things to happen. He sees the beginning from the end from the beginning. So let's picture it this way. God's in heaven, in eternity, outside of space and time. He sees the whole of humanity and the world unfold before his eyes. He sees how it's all going to work out. He sees what you're going to go through. He sees what you could go through and what he wants you to go through. There's two paths. You know, the Bible says, I've set before you blessing and curses. And then it says life and death, blessing and curse. Therefore choose life that you and your descendants may live. God has set a path before us to choose life or death. There's the path of life, the path of death. Okay, there's the narrow path and the straight and the wide path, the wide road. And so, God has ordained, he has predestined a path of righteousness for us, a path of blessing, of his protection, of his will to be done in our lives. And if we walk in that path, he will put roadblocks there to stop certain things from happening in our life that he simply cannot allow, because he wants his will done in our lives. So Paul the Apostle, no matter what the people wanted to do to him, wanting to kill him, he weren't going to die before his time. Okay? He wasn't going to die before his time. The Apostle John, okay? God predestined him and foresaw that he would be writing the book of Revelation because God wanted that to happen. So God preordained and predestined John the Apostle to be alive on the island of Patmos to write the book of Revelation. What happened before that? The devil tries to come in, tries to stop John from writing Revelation. How does he do it? By getting John persecuted. They stick John in a pot of boiling oil to burn him to death. Doesn't work. They try and kill him. Doesn't work. Finally, they just stick him on the island of Patmos because the guy is like invincible. Basically, God has made him invincible. His divine protection's over him. When you look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they go into the fiery furnace, that should have killed them. Okay, it should have killed them. But God preordained, he predestined. No, that's not going to stop them because they need to do this. That needs to be a sign. This needs to be done that. But they had to walk in the path God set before them. If they stepped outside of the path that God wanted them to do, of their own free will, wouldn't have happened. Now you may say, oh what, so we can decide to mess God's plans up? Well, yeah, we can. But what you've got to also understand is that from the beginning, God sees who's going to obey him, who's not going to obey him. He wasn't going to entrust the book of Revelation to a Christian that was going to end up flaking it out. Okay, he knew John's heart before he was even born. He knew John would carry it through. He knew John would stay faithful and he would do what God wanted him to do. And so therefore he entrusted him. And that's where it comes in, where many are called, where few are chosen. Okay, God has seen us. He sees who's going to be faithful, who's not going to be faithful, who's going to reject him, who's going to accept him, and then he'll entrust the important things, such as writing the Bible and doing things of significant spiritual importance, and he will say, I'm choosing John because he will stay faithful to me, and as John walks on my path of righteousness, which I know he will, he's going to write the book of Revelation. Okay, and nothing will stop that from happening. Okay, so God has set his plans in motion. Our free will is still involved. Okay, our free will is still involved, but he knows those who are his, and he knows those who will serve him, and he knows those who will search their hearts and say, I want to do the right thing by God. I'm being tested. I'm being, Peter the Apostle, for example. God knew that he was going to say he didn't know Jesus and deny him 3 times. But Peter had a very important job to go about. And that's what separated him from Judas. God knew from day one that Judas was a thief. He still gave him the chance to do the right thing. But Judas decided to do his own thing. Okay, God didn't preordain him to betray Jesus. Okay, it wasn't a setup. That wouldn't have been fair. God knew ahead of time Judas was going to betray him. And so Judas did. But on the other hand, he saw Peter was going to do the right thing. He was going to repent after he rejected Jesus, and he was going to go on to be involved in the letter of Peter, 1 Peter and 2 Peter. He was going to do a bunch of other things that were very important in the whole realm of Christianity and the future of the world. Okay. Now, let's go back to God being in control. Now, if you look at the word control, again, as we've looked at, if a person has control, then they can lose control. Okay? If a person has to control something, it means that there's a resistance to that control. Okay? At the moment, I'm balancing this bottle. I'm in control. But all it takes is a sudden jog from outside of my control. If someone comes over and knocks me and I spill that, it's out of my control. And God is not doing that. God doesn't need to control anything, okay? God isn't concerned. Nobody's going to come over and knock God's elbow and knock the drink out of his hand, so to speak. God doesn't need to be in control because he doesn't have to monitor things. He doesn't have to jump in and say, oh, wow, I didn't know this coronavirus was going to pop up. Right, what I'm going to have to do is change this, change that, and do it on the hop, It's interesting, when we looked at the word control, a lot of it was, let's look at it again. The word control means to check, to audit, to inspect, to monitor. Now, I've worked in factories before where there's quality control, okay? And those who have worked in factories, warehouses and quality control, you have to check the quality of something. You have to make sure that things are under control. You have to audit it. You have to monitor it. You have to make sure everything's running smooth. Okay. You have to make sure everything's in order and things are going the way they should be. God doesn't have to do that. Okay. When he created everything and set the whole world in motion, time, space, the future and everything, he gave up work on the 7th day. And he hasn't worked since. Okay, I submit to you, God has not worked since that day. He answers prayer, but that's not work. Okay, he answers our prayers. He does things. He does this. He does that. He hasn't done nothing since the beginning of time, obviously. Okay, but as in the context of setting the future, in the context of predestination, of things that have to come to pass, and his plans for our life, He's not doing it on the go. Okay? God is not doing things on the go. He sees it ahead of time, settles it. And so therefore there's no need for him to be in control. So when we look at things that happen in the world, like wars and diseases and all the rest of the things, and we sort of think, wow, is God going to do something? He's already done it. He's already done it. You might say, well, it doesn't look like he's done anything. Well, he has. He's put things in motion. He's put plans in motion. You would have to be able to see into the realm of the spirit to see what God is doing. And those who are spiritually minded will discern what he is doing behind the physical world. Okay? What we see in this physical world is only a manifestation, an outward manifestation of what we see God doing. But there is things in the realm of the spirit that God is doing, that he is keeping in motion to make sure things don't get out of control, because it's not possible. Now, one of the problems with us when we say, oh, God is in control, yeah, if we say to people, God is in control, and one of their children die, or someone, or one of you gets ill, you know, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, the coronavirus won't touch me, and this, that, and the other, but they have. But people have got it. Christians, strong in faith, have come down with the coronavirus. Well, what's that about then? Does that mean God isn't in control? Well, no, he knew you was going to get it, but he also was going to make sure that if you walk according to his will and according to his ways, and with his plan for your life and what he's got planned out for your future, that certain things may happen and things may not happen. And sometimes things will happen in our life that we're not too pleased with, we're not happy with, and we may sort of think that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. How comes one of my loved ones has died? Or how comes this seemed to go really wrong? And I don't understand. And I've been there. I've been there in my life when I've looked at sort of situations and thought, that person, they were too young to die. Or I was thinking, I was really sort of enjoying doing this part of my life, and now now I can't do it anymore. Why is that? It doesn't seem to make sense. It will make sense in time. It will make sense in time, and God will reveal to us, look, this is why that happened, okay? Not that he ordained people to die, not that he ordained certain things, bad things to happen to us, but he knew they were going to happen, and he prepared us around it anyway, okay? He can see things, he can change things, and things that are really majorly important to the scheme and the plans of heaven, he will make sure that won't happen, like John getting boiled and not dying, and going to the island of Patmos to write the book of Revelation. You know, the simple fact of the matter is, some of us, we're so full of self-importance, and we have to accept that some of us are just not as important as we think we are. And some of us may not see the full length of our days. Some of us may not be the Smith Wigglesworth, John G. Lake, or the Billy Graham of our generation, you know, and all these other preachers that we respect and, you know, read after. It's not going to happen, because that is not what God wanted, and it's not what God planned. We don't make the rules. We don't dictate to God. We don't say, well, if I was you, I wouldn't have had that happen. I wouldn't have had this happen. The Bible says in Romans 8:28, now all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. Okay? Sometimes bad things happen, but God will bring good out of it. And to be honest, if one of our loved ones die and they're Christian anyway, that's not a bad thing. Okay? Not for them at all. They're going to heaven. That's a good thing. Okay? We need to get over this thing that, oh, if our loved ones who are saved and, you know, a Christian, if they go on to be with the Lord, there's a bad thing that's happened to us. It's not. Because our home is not here. Our home is in eternity with God. That's our home. This is just a temporary thing. When we start understanding that if loss happens in our life, or things happen to us physically in life, and it hinders us, you know, even sometimes when people are sick, sometimes people get disabled or have PTSD or whatever it is, okay? We're not going to have that in the next life. We're not going to have that. Okay? There is many Christians who are disabled, who are not well, and they are serving God regardless. Smith Wigglesworth, great man of faith, no question about it, for 6 years, past kidney stones, he was bleeding on the stage, his trousers were just absolutely blood all over him. And what was he doing? He was laying hands on the sick and they were being healed. John G. Lake's wife died of malnutrition. She was feeding so many people coming to her house. Now, I don't believe that God wanted her to neglect her own health and well-being in order to feed other people so that she died, okay? But it happened. It still happened. Smith Wigglesworth's wife died before him. Smith Wigglesworth laid hands on his wife, raised her from the dead, and she said, Smith, it's time for me to go, let me go. And he was like, but I want you here, and she said, no, my time has come, my time is over now, it's time for me to be with Jesus, now let me go. And Smith Wigglesworth let her die, second time. Smith Wigglesworth's ministry took off after his wife went to be with the Lord. When his wife was alive, he was like the servant. She would do the preaching. He would come up to the altar, lead people through the prayer of salvation. Once his wife passed away, his ministry, boom, massive ministry. And so there we see that out of tragedy came triumph. Was God in control? No, he didn't need to be in control. He had already seen this happen. He had predetermined and predestined these things, the situations to work out for our good. Okay? So just finishing up here. Is God in control? No. Does that mean the world's going to go to hell in a handbasket? Nope. Because he hasn't preordained it. He hasn't predestined it. What the Bible says will happen. That's the end of it. Once God says something, there's no change in that. You know, I was speaking to somebody the other day, a man who's been a Christian many years, probably about 60 years, I reckon, maybe 50. And I said to him, how do you know that God spoke to you about doing this particular project? And he said, well, you know, because other people said that they believed it was God as well. I said, okay. I said, did you actually hear from God? And he was like, well, sort of not being a voice as such. I said, so how do you know that God said it? And I said, what happens if this project that you are doing doesn't come to pass? He said, then God will do something else. I said, okay, so you're saying to me, God said, do this project, but if that doesn't happen, then God will say, I'll tell you what, we'll do something else. And he said, yeah. I said, no, that's not correct. Because Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today and forever. The book of Malachi says that God says, I am the Lord, I change not. God doesn't change his mind. He's not hit and miss. He's not like, plan B then. He doesn't say, right, we'll do this. Oh, well, that didn't work. Perhaps we'll do that. Right, that didn't work. No, and then end up with a plan Z. You know, plan Z. Z for those in America, Z for those in England. God hasn't got any plan Bs and Zs, okay? He's already going to work it out. So the good news is God is not in control and he doesn't have to be in control. It's all sorted out. Your life, God has your life mapped out. He knows what's going to happen. He knows why you're going through what you're going through. He has worked it out when you're going to come out of it, when you're going into it, when you're coming out of it, when you're going through it. And if, you know, in some cases, you know, we just have to be prepared and say, Lord, your will be done. Look at Stephen. He was martyred, the first martyr. He was only young, but he completed God's will. God knew that Stephen would stand up for him, and God allowed him to be martyred. That he didn't get martyred because those people killed him and because the devil got one over God, because he didn't. God saw that and he knew that Stephen was prepared to die, and he was like, I'm going to allow that to happen. I'm going to allow Stephen to be martyred because it sowed the seeds of the early church. Do you see the revival after in the book of Acts? You see that revival? Once Stephen died and the early martyrs of the early church, massive revival from those who gave their lives. And so we just need to be open to God's will, his plan and purpose for our life, and just rest in that. Just rest in faith. It's good. It's good. It's good that God isn't in control. It's good that he doesn't have to jump in and arrange things and play like a chessboard or something, because that would mean he's out of control. God cannot be out of control. It's impossible. Okay? Now, I hope you got that. I've explained it as simply as I could. And there's, if you want chapter and verse, I mean, go onto YouTube and you can just come up with tons and tons to confirm what I've been saying. If you do have any disagreements or anything, just leave a comment and I'll be happy to look into it and review what has been said. If you have chapter and verse to contradict what I've been teaching, then fine, go for it. We're all here to learn. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm just saying I'm going by the evidence, okay? The evidence suggests that God is not in control because he doesn't need to be. If you come up with evidence that disproves the evidence I've come up with, then I need to look at the whole thing again. Okay, right. Well, God bless you. Thanks for joining me, and see you on the next Sermons on the Go. Goodbye.